Hi everyone. So today we're going to start our lesson on Chapter 8, Section 7, Factoring Special Cases. We are on page 523 in the textbook. So what we're going to do today is factoring perfect square trinomials. So the first thing I want to go over is squaring. So squaring, when I say square, that means 2 is going to be the exponent. So if I say 2 squared, that basically means we're doing 2 times 2. And when we do that, 2 squared is equal to 4. 8 squared, 8 times 8, which is equal to 64. And now I would say probably the most tricky one for some of us might be 1 squared. It's not 1 times 2, it's 1 times 1, which gives us 1. And then the same thing, if we wanted to find the square root of these, what number multiplied by itself would give us 4? 2. What number multiplied by itself would give us 64? 8. What number multiplied by itself would give us 1? 1. So let's practice this one. So this is basically what the form of perfect square trinomials will look like. So you're going to have a plus b in parentheses squared. So to solve it, you have to do a plus b times a plus b. When we do FOIL, we get a squared plus 2ab plus b squared. Now we can also have a minus b squared, which is a minus b times a minus b, which is equal to a squared minus 2ab plus b squared. Now this right here in this pink box, any trinomial in this form is a perfect square trinomial because it is the result of squaring a binomial. Okay, we're going to break that down. This right here, binomial, 2 terms. This right here, trinomial, 3 terms. So when I'm gonna go over about perfect squares. So if we have a squared plus 2ab plus b squared, that's going to be equal to a plus b times a plus b, which is equal to this is what we get when we factored a squared plus 2ab plus b squared. So a plus b times a plus b, a simpler way to write that is a plus b squared. And then we can have a squared minus 2ab plus b squared. If we were to factor that, you would get a minus b times a minus b, or you could say it's a minus b squared. So how to, given a perfect square trinomial, factor into the square of a binomial? This right here on the left-hand side is the trinomial. This over here on the right-hand side, that's our binomial. So we want to go from this form to that form. Now a little side note, how we've been factoring, you can go ahead and factor that way, or if we realize when we have a perfect square trinomial, we can use this method I'm going to go over now. So the first thing you have to do is confirm that the first and last term are perfect squares. Okay, so this would be term 1, and this would be the last term. So we have to figure out, is term 1 and term 3 perfect squares? So what's that mean? That means, can I multiply a number times itself to give me that number? Or in this case, variables. A times what would, or what times what would give me a squared? A times a. And b squared, how would I get that? B times b would give me b squared. So would they be perfect squares? Yes, they would. So we are going to confirm that the middle term is twice the product of a times b. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to confirm that a and the third term, or the first and last term, are perfect squares. When we do that, we're going to rewrite it into the square form, and I'll show you how to do that in a second. And what we got to do is multiply 2 times whatever a is and whatever b is, and you should get that same answer back. So confirm that the middle term is twice the product of a times b. So 2 times ab if it's positive, or negative 2 times a times b if it's negative. And then we're going to write the factored form as a plus b squared or a minus b squared. So right here we have x squared minus 12x plus 36. Okay. the first thing you should figure it out, is it going to be a minus b or a plus b? Here it's going to be a minus b squared because we have a negative here and a positive over here. The only way to get that positive 36 is to multiply negative times negative. Now you could go ahead and use the factoring we went over last week, or you can go ahead and do this method I'm teaching you right now. And this is only going to work when it's a perfect square. So, are a and b perfect squares? Yes. How do we know that? What times x squared? How would we get that back? X times what? X times x. And then what two numbers, when they multiply together, give us 36? They have to be a perfect square, so 6 times 6. So a is equal to x and b is equal to 6. So we're going to rewrite it as x squared minus 12x plus 6 squared. So does the middle term, negative 12x, equal to negative 2 times a times b? So let's rewrite it. Negative 2 times a times b is equal to, now we're just going to plug in what we got for a, what we have for b. So we're going to do negative 2 times x times 6. And when we simplify that, we get negative 12x. So does negative 12x equal negative 12x? Yes. So now we can know, we could just plug in whatever we had for a and whatever we had for b. So a minus b squared is equal to x minus 6 times x minus 6, or x minus 6 squared. And x minus 6 squared is our final answer. Then let's try this one. We have x squared plus 6x plus 9. It will have the form a plus b squared. Why? Because we have a positive here and a positive here. Are a and b perfect squares? Yes. How do we know that? Whenever you just have just the normal x squared, it's automatically going to be a perfect square. Why? Because x times x will give us x squared. And is 9 a perfect square? Could you take the square root of 9? The square root of 9 would be 3, or 3 times 3 would give us 9, or 3 squared would also give us 9. So we could say a is equal to x and b is equal to 3. So let's rewrite it using what we had for a and what we had for b. So x squared plus 6x plus 3 squared. Okay. Does the middle term 6x equal 2 times a times b? So let's do this. 2 times a times b, and we're just going to replace a with x and b with 3. So 2 times x times 3. So 2 times 3 is 6, times x is 6x. Does 6x equals 6x? Yes. So we can say a plus b squared is equal to x times 3 times x plus 3, which is in turn equal to x plus 3 squared. So when you have a perfect square trinomial, at the end, your answer is going to look like this. So now we have x squared minus 14x plus 49. It will have the form a minus b squared because of the negative and then the positive. Are a and b perfect squares? Yes. A is equal to x because x times x gives me x squared, and b is equal to 7. How do we know that? Well, we could take the square root of that last number. If it's a whole number, no decimals, nothing, it's a perfect square. So a is equal to x and b is equal to 7. So let's rewrite it using a and b instead. So x squared minus 14x plus 7 squared. And now we need to know, does the middle term negative 14x equal negative 2 times a times b? So we have negative 2 times a times b, which is equal to negative 2 times x times 7. We multiply negative 2 times 7, we get negative 14, and then times x, so we get negative 14x. Negative 14x equal negative 14x? Yes. So now we can replace it in this form. A minus b squared is equal to x minus 7 times x minus 7, which is equal to x minus 7 squared. And this right here is our final answer. How about we try this one out? 25x squared plus 20x plus 4. Before we even dive into this problem, it will have the form a plus b squared. Why? Because it's all positive. Are A and B perfect squares? Yes. So, what's the square root of 25? 5. And what's the square root of x? X. Or what's the square root of x squared? X. So our A is equal to 5x. And then B. What's the square root of 4? 2. So B is equal to 2. So now let's replace it. So let's replace the A with 5x. We have 5x and then in parentheses squared plus 20x plus 2 squared. So now does the middle term 20x equal to 2 times A times B? So we got to check that. So 2 times 5x times 2. 2 times 5 gives me 10. Times 2 is 20. Times x is 20x. Does 20x equal 20x? Yes. So we can say, now just replace this A plus B right over here. We can replace the A with 5x and the B with 2. And we can get 5x plus 2 squared is equal to 5x plus 2 times 5x plus 2, which in turn is equal to 5x plus 2 squared. And this right here is our final answer. Now, if you didn't want to do this, you could have gone ahead and factored the way we did last week, where you would have multiplied this times A times C. Completely up to you how you want to factor. This way is a little quicker and faster when you have perfect squares for the first term and for the last term. And this one here, 49x squared minus 14x plus 1. What form is going to have? A plus b squared or a minus b squared? It's going to be a minus b squared because of the negative, then the positive. So whenever it's negative, then positive, a minus b. So A, are A and B perfect squares? Yes, they are. How do we know that? What's the square root of 49? What number times what? What number times itself will give us 49? 7. And what I tell you about x squared? X times x. So A is equal to 7x, and our B, what's the square root of 1? 1. And our B is equal to 1. So A is equal to 7x, and B is equal to 1. So we write the equation using A and B, or A and C, or A. So we have 7x squared minus 14x plus 1 squared. So does the term negative 14x equal to negative 2 times A times B? So now we're going to plug in for A and B. So we have negative 2 times 7x times 1. Negative 2 times 7 is negative 14 times 1, negative 14 times x, and we get negative 14x. Negative 14x is equal to negative 14x, yes. So now we plug it into the form A minus B squared. So we have A is 7x and B was 1. So 7x minus 1 times 7x minus 1 is equal to 7x minus 1 squared. And the reason we're saying this is squared is because it's 7x minus 1 times itself. And let's try this one. 25x squared plus 40x plus 16. It's going to have the form A plus B squared. Why? Because of the two positives. And we need to know, are A and B perfect squares? Yes. Why? Because what's the square root of 25? 5. What's the square root of x squared? X. What's the square root of 16? 4. So A is equal to 5x and B is equal to 4. So now we just replace A and B. So we have 5x squared plus 40x plus 4 squared. So now we have to figure out, does the middle term 40x equal to 2 times A times B? And we replace the A and the B and multiply that by the 2. So 2 times 5 times 4, and we get 40. 40x is equal to 40x, which is good. So now we could replace A and B. So we have A plus B squared is equal to x plus 4, or 5x plus 4 times 5x plus 4, which in turn is equal to 5x plus 4 squared. As always, here is our pet of the day. This right here is Lucy. So some daily reminders. Your homework is assigned daily, and it's posted in Google Classroom and Plus Portals. You have to upload it to Classroom or email it to me before the start of class. If I don't get it before, it's late and you won't receive full credit. And I've posted your test packets on Plus Portals and Google Classroom. These packets are due back to me by Tuesday, June 9th. All of your work must be shown for these packets. If you do not show all your work, you will not receive full credit. Also, your name needs to be visible on every single page. Your hand or your name needs to be in your handwriting. If you have any questions, please be sure to send me an email. Have a great day, guys.